Boy, how great is it to be sharing the Bema once again with Alan Frailich. So about 1976, 77, I get a letter. I get a letter from Michael Isaacson saying, my name is Michael Isaacson, I'm in town, I'm a composer. Would you like to meet together to talk about something? Turns out I was the only one that actually answered the letter. But I knew about Michael. I didn't know him as a person, so we decided to meet, and I had always wanted to commission. And we met, and I discovered something about him. Number one, he, like me, has a beautiful wife. He, like me, is a big guy. He, like me, loves Mrs. Stahl's knishes from Brighton Beach. We hit it off just famously right away. So not only did we have this professional relationship, but we had this wonderful personal relationship, which we have cherished, which we have kept up. And I'm going to tell you a little secret. That beautiful singer over there almost caused them not to have children when she was 2 years old. She was eating and made such a mess, and we had Susie and Michael over for dinner. I think they almost vowed never to have children until they had their own and they discovered what it was really like to have children. He's the perfect combination of what a composer needs to be for a Jewish music. He comes from a yeshiva background. He has a PhD in composition. He has a deep and abiding and wonderful Jewish soul. And he creates music. He creates music for our heads, for our hearts, and for our souls. And I'm very happy to call my friend up to the Bema, Michael Isaacson.
Mrs. Stahl's knishes, huh? Wow, what an evening. What an evening. Thank you to everybody who's come here. Old friends, new friends, musical community. We're like family. Very often people say, how do you write all of this music and where does it come from? And I'm reminded of the great Jewish sages, Rogers and Hammerstein, who said, nothing comes from nothing. Nothing ever could, but somewhere in my youth or childhood, I must have done something good. And what I did good was, I had a family who loved Judaism, and I studied with Robert Starr at Brooklyn College and went to the Eastman School of Music. And I had a teacher, composition teacher there, who taught me a lesson that I want to share with you. It was one of the first lessons when I went into his studio. Warren Benson, may he rest in peace. He said, he showed me a blank measure of music. He said, what do you see there? And I said, a blank measure of music. He says, well, how are you going to fill it up? And I said, I guess I've been doing it and I haven't been thinking about it. He says, well, the first thing you should know is that not only are you looking at this blank music or this absence of music in the present, but this measure exists in the past and the future as well. It was, I didn't know how to react. Past, present, and future. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, when you're looking at a piece of music, it has resonance from the past, if it's any good. It comes from somewhere. I said, what about the first measure? Where does that come from? He said, silence, and that's very important as well. He says, let's go to the second measure so we have some framework. He says, that second measure has a measure before it and a measure after it. He says, and your job is to identify the history, the resonance of that measure, and understand why it's so compelling for you to fill it in the present, and what energies you have brought from the past and molded into this compelling presence that will push you forward into the future. Because everyone and everything lives simultaneously in 3 time frames: past, present, and future. He says, I know it's fashionable to say, live for the moment, the past is gone and the future hasn't come to be, and the present is all we have. He says, but that's not really the way it is. You have a history. You come from someplace. You were meant to do something here and now. And if you do it well enough, other people and other places and other conditions in the future will benefit from your music. And tonight, I sat here and listened to all these performances, and I said, wow, some of these I wrote when I was 20 years old, some of us 30. The piece that was debuted tonight I wrote for Kerith right before my 70th birthday. And the past, present, and future all of a sudden came alive for me. I look into this room, Anne and Arnold Copelson Sanctuary, and I remember when it wasn't air conditioned. And I remember when we did a selichot service, a midnight penitential service. And one of the percussion that it had were inverted flower pots hanging from a rope for some percussion effect. It became known as a flower pot service. And it was so hot that evening that a man fainted. I'll never forget that either. I said, boy, I must have some impact on my people fainting. And I also remember when a brass quintet would open our high holiday services with Rossi, and would really fill the room. And I remember when Rabbi Frailich commissioned a shofar service that we used to do here with brass quintet and shofar, and it really gave the new year a presence. And we have done so much together in an experimental way. This has been my laboratory as well as my sanctuary, to create new sounds that started here and have literally gone around the world. Something that I wrote here was just performed by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, so at least it's moved to Utah. So this presence for me certainly has a resonance. But let me talk about the future. I should say that when the turn of the century, 2000, came about, I said to Jay, I want to do something special for the new century. He says, well, there's nothing Jewish about the new century. I said, but we could have a Jewish response to it. And so I wrote a piece called To Recreate the World that was the first service to have a recorded accompaniment, tracks. And 43 congregations around North America simultaneously premiered it on the same Erev Shabbat Shira in 2000. And when I dealt with the fact that I was turning 70, I said, I'd like to do that again with another service. And so, again, this time 21 congregations came together, and I wrote a service called Ladorot Haba'im, for generations to come. That's the future. And this congregation, under Kerith's leadership, will premiere it along with the rest of the congregations on Erev Shabbat Shira, February 10th. Put this on your calendar. Because it will have a pre-recorded accompaniment, and everyone will be able to sing as if there was a live orchestra in the room. One of the problems with writing synagogue music is that some temples are larger and more affluent and can afford accompaniment, and some are small and and meager and don't have music budgets. And this way, everyone can sing with size and grandeur and importance. And so I invite you to that premiere on February 10th. How can I sing? How can I thank? This has been just a memorable evening for me. You all are so lovely to do this, and you've touched my heart. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for my first wife, Susie Isaacson, my only wife for 41 years. And I wish you all a present that is filled with the resonance of a fulfilled past and promise of an energetic, bright future. It's the only way to live. I'm telling you, it's been great. Thank you very much.